Welcome, intrepid travelers. My name is Philip, the Reasonable Game Master, and this video is on Streamlining Greyhawk Initiative.
Why does trying to go fast have to go so slow? Actually, it doesn't. Let's get reasonable.
Looking at Greyhawk Initiative, there are three main things that add time. One thing is the player conference before deciding everyone's actions, so there's going to be a set of table talk time commonly where people are deciding, oh, what should we do? Should we move over? Should I move over there? Should I cast this spell? Should I attack this enemy? And etc. And also remembering the rules, deciding which dice to use, right? There's only 4 dice in the base system, the base Greyhawk Initiative system, right? And I know a lot of people aren't using the base system, but under the base system, there's only 4 dice, so there's really not that much to remember. And you also need to remember that there's 1 die for each action you're doing in a round, right? So that's another thing to remember. But I think your players will get that. And then the last thing is the actual dice rolling. Okay, so let's look at those 3 different things. Alright, this player conference thing, in the Unearthed Arcana, Mike Morales talks about how at the start of each round, the players would have a brief discussion about what to do during the round, and then they would choose their dice and they would roll, right? And depending on your table, depending on your players, this amount of talking time is going to vary, and it could add a lot of time. It'll add time to each round. But I think people overestimate how much time that's really going to add, you know? Combat, I can't imagine many combats lasting less than an hour. Many, average combats will last an hour, in my experience. And to take an example that other people might be familiar with, if you look at Critical Role, you can go on Critical Role stats and look at their combats, and their average battles take about 50 minutes-ish, and the combats only last 5 rounds. So even if there was, say, a conference at the beginning of each round, and say each one of those rounds added 5 minutes, it would be another 25 minutes, and so that would be a pretty significant addition in time. But I feel like in reality, what's going to happen is there's going to be a big conference at the start of the battle, and there might be a short conference when there's a big battlefield change, but otherwise, the players are going to be basically trying to do the same things, right? The fighters are going to fight and tank, the healers are going to heal, and the blasters, archers are going to be shooting over people's heads and hitting people, right? Only if someone's trying to get away, or you need to save a hostage or something, is that really going to add a lot of time, right? And of course, as people learn, it's going to get faster and faster. I've seen a lot of people talking about their experiences with Greyhawk Initiative, and how a lot of it comes out in the wash, because in reality, there's a lot of table talk sometimes, even without using Greyhawk Initiative. Players will be like, oh, what do I do? Should I attack? Should I cast a spell? Where should I move? If I move here, am I going to provoke an attack opportunity? And depending on how you handle pacing your game, you can adjust that. But I think a lot of it kind of equals out, right? It just, when is the time being added, right? And why is the time being added, right? This time in Greyhawk Initiative is being assigned to initiative, right? At the start of the round instead of during each people's turn, because once the turn starts, they've already decided what they're going to do, right? They have an attack and a move, and they have to do it. Or they don't do anything, or they do less of that, right? The time that they spend is spent somewhere else, right? And so to streamline this even more, if this is a problem at your table, something you can do is you can just limit the amount of time for the conference, right? When they're first starting, give them a lot of time so they can learn the system and get comfortable, right? And so say, okay, you guys have 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes at the start of a round, decide what you're going to do, plan, and then we're just going to roll, and we're going to move through it, and we're going to get faster at this. And if you take a little bit longer, no big deal, but let's try to, work on making the pace better so we can get more done in a gaming session, right? I think that's a common thing that a lot of DMs will try to do to make pacing better. So you can get a little hourglass from Amazon that records a minute or 5 minutes, or if you can use your phone. I'm recording this on my phone, so I can't show you, but you just put a little timer on your phone and be like, okay, you guys have to the end of this, and then just gradually wean your players off of large amounts of planning time, right? And as they get more experience, that time is going to shrink automatically, just because they're going to know their characters, they're going to know how to like handle a certain situation. So you can work them down from like 5 minutes to 4 minutes to 3 minutes to 2 minutes to 1 minute. And probably 1 minute is probably a pretty fair amount of time to give them on a regular basis. Just to keep things moving along and yet give them time to, tactically figure things out. Because the reality is their players are going to be much better at tactical. The characters, right, should be much better at combat than us as like people who aren't going adventurers would be. So I think that a little bit of metagaming kind of simulates that. Alright, the next thing is helping players remember the rules and how to alleviate the time cost of players learning the rules and deciding which dice to use and how to streamline that part. So I've got these little cards. They're very simple. I just hand wrote them, right? They tell you what you can do on your round, right? And this one has the dice that you can use and the dice that associate with each different action, right? And so the player can just have this in front of them. They can actually put their dice like on the little squares, and as they are deciding what to do, once they've decided what to do, they just grab the corresponding dice and roll them. Keep the dice in front of them, and that's basically it. I think this is kind of another thing that I think comes out in the wash. I think some players do have trouble with the rules and it takes them a while to learn it, but they will pick them up. Just give them a little time, be patient with them, and help them. And again, this is something that I think will work itself out. And other people might have more complex cards. Sorry for my face, but I know some people have like a little bit more complicated version like this. And I'll have a video about some of this stuff later on. Alright, and going on to the third thing. The third thing is the actual dice rolling, right? And so people kind of think about how long it takes to figure out initiative at the beginning of the round in regular 5th edition initiative. And it's like, oh man, to do that every round seems like a lot of time. But what happens in reality is people take their dice, right? They take their dice, and everyone makes a decision to roll. They decide their actions, right? I'm gonna move, I'm gonna attack, I'm gonna move, I'm gonna shoot a bow, I'm gonna move and I'm gonna cast a spell, right? Or I'm just gonna move, or I'm just gonna cast a spell. And they all do that simultaneously. You don't need to write that down, right? Or the player can write it down for themselves in front of them, right? But they don't need to give it to the DM. The DM doesn't need to be like, who has a 1, who has a 2, who has a 3, right? Instead of that, the DM just says, all right, can anyone act on segment 1? Most times it'll probably be no. Can anyone act on segment 2? On segment 3? Oh, you have an action? Oh, what are you gonna do? Oh, you can move and attack? All right, do it. Where are you going? And you actually call out, as you call out the numbers, you count up from 1, and those are the spaces for people's turns, right? And people already have to decide what they're going to do in return. You're like, oh, fighter, what are you doing? It's your turn. Oh, okay, the enemy's turn. I'm the DM, so I'm deciding what the enemy's doing. All right, wizard, it's your turn, right? And this is already happening, right? The organization is just a little different, and you don't need to collect all of those numbers. Just have everyone roll. Keep the dice in front of them so that they can remember, oh, I got a 10 and a 1, right? So that, and they'll just keep it in front of them, and they'll remember what their number is, right? And then you just call out 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when you get to 11, they're like, oh, I can go, and this is what I'm doing. Just have everyone roll, keep it in front of them, and their dice will be the proof of what they were planning to do, right? And then, yeah, and then you just call out the numbers. 1, can anyone act on 1, can anyone act on 2, etc. Alright, that's it for this video. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please leave them in the comments below. The next video is going to be on variant spellcasting rules for Greyhawk Initiative. Alright, thank you for watching, and remember, be reasonable and have fun.